Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The Chiefs dropped their preseason opener at Jacksonville last weekend, but there's plenty to discuss, starting with the running back position. How will things shake out with the recent solid play of undrafted rookie Carson Steele? Beat writer Jesse Newell and columnist Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian explore this topic and several more, like the defensive line, the cornerback play, wide receivers, and overall depth. Let's get started talking Chiefs. Vahe's got the cookie brownie, the star of training camp.
I would respond, except I've got the cookie brownie. It is the star of training camp. I see Jesse's eyes light up every once in a while, but this is the one that really gets him. Am I right?
This is one of the best.
And I've got pictures of you eating cupcakes late night in Baltimore.
Your cupcakes.
My birthday cupcakes.
Your birthday cupcakes, not just any cupcakes.
Smashed up a little in the backpack, but nonetheless. Anyway, you know what you're looking for.
I don't discriminate with food or desserts, as Sam McDowell can tell you.
And yet, you have resisted temptation on the desserts throughout training camp, which is about to close, right? We're second to last day. And the only dessert, Jesse, that you've partaken is the cookie brownie.
That was the exception to the rule.
Can you tell our audience the nature of the competition?
Yeah, sure. Me, Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, and Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride, we vowed to not eat desserts here at training camp, and so
I thought it was only if the other guy could see it or not.
I was going to owe them $50 each if they saw me eat a dessert here at camp, and so
other than a cookie
brownie, it was the exception. So instead of gaining 10 pounds at camp, I lost 3. So I'm considering this camp a major victory.
That's pretty good. Lost 3 pounds, put 2,500 miles on a car. So
how do the Chiefs feel about this camp, Blair?
Good segue.
Host.
So last week, Sam McDowell had this really good idea about identifying players that we wanted to focus on in the preseason opener. So we all picked 2, one on offense, one on defense, and as it turned out, I think pretty clairvoyant. Almost all of them. I can't remember all the guys we picked, but almost all of them had something, significant role in the game, right? The biggest talking point after the Chiefs' loss in Jacksonville was the play of running back.
Carson Steele.
Thank you very much.
I
because it's been a long
halfback or fullback.
No, there was it was like an album that was skipping.
And who had him? One of you guys put him in your. Blair, was that you or Jesse? One of you guys.
It may have been me. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure we accounted for Carson Steele.
It was Blair.
Was it?
I'm remembering a lot of things for him right now, so it was Blair.
Blairvoyant.
Boom! It has been a long training camp, my friends. But interesting guy, and talked to him a little bit after the game, and of course he was at the tent the other day. But how does start there? But how does his play in training camp now affect the running back position for the Chiefs? Because none of us had him on our bingo card going into training camp as a potential roster maker, but I think we all feel, that he has a good chance to make the 53.
Yeah, I feel like they're really going to have to think hard about keeping 4 running backs this year, or a combination running backs and fullbacks. I still think of him as a running back because he hasn't played fullback in a long time in his life. So they have Pacheco, who runs pretty violently, that's susceptible to injury. He was injured last year. They have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think we all praise him for speaking out that he's dealing with PTSD. The football aspect of what he's going through is that he misses days unforeseen. It's unpredictable. He told us he also has this vomiting syndrome. You're going to have to anticipate that he's going to be missing days throughout the season, in which case I don't think you feel comfortable just having 3 running backs going into the season. I don't think that Deneric Prince has really stood out to me the same way that Carson Steele does. We were all talking about Carson Steele before the preseason game. I mean, Blair, you put him in that player to watch for a reason. And then if Jesse, he put him in the player to watch.
Yes, he did.
And then
Carson Steele. Yes. Thank you.
You're doing great.
And
need the encouragement.
The other aspect of it was we hadn't they don't tackle up here, so it was I mean, you could tell by his size, and the scouting reports on him were good enough to where you thought, okay, this guy could be somebody who could break some tackles, but that was the best run the Chiefs had on Saturday, and now the difference, the separator, is doing it again, because what separates really good NFL players from good to average NFL players is just being able to do it every rep. And so if he's got to put another game like that together, I think, on Saturday too.
One thing that we've talked about, and I can't remember if we talked about it on a podcast or just among ourselves, but what do you guys perceive is how do you guys perceive the Jerick McKinnon role will be filled based on the personnel that we're seeing? And don't they have a need for someone to be that? And the part we've joked about is why isn't it actually Jerick McKinnon? But that's its own story. But what are your feelings about that?
A third down back is what you're saying.
So last year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco combined for 5 touches on third downs last year. They had 1 first down between both of those guys. Jerick McKinnon had more than double that. And then 2 years ago, the gap was even wider. Because, by the way, Jerick McKinnon missed games last year, and he was still their only effective third down back. Jesse and I have talked about, like, Pacheco does look improved in the passing game. Patrick Williams said something that caught both of our attention the other day about the fact that he's running a lot more routes, like just to try and become a better receiver of the football. But there's not an obvious guy on this team. And by the way, Carson Steele's not that guy either. Like, he wasn't that guy in college. So it'd have to be a learned trait for him as well. I don't think Deneric Prince has been that guy in camp. I don't know who fills that role. I think Pacheco's going to play more, but do you want that guy playing more when he runs physical and you need him for 17 games? He's more valuable to you in January than he is in September.
I think 3 weeks ago they were hoping that was Louis Rees-Zammit, and that just has not materialized here at camp. He's further behind than they think. He was set out today's practice with some sort of injury. I don't think there's a perfect person, but to your point, Sam, I think some of this goes to Isiah Pacheco. If you're out there in PPR leagues and fantasy football, he's getting more catches this year. I mean, if he stays healthy, that's going to happen. So if you're thinking about him late in the second round, you might bump him up a few spots because that's going to be more of his role. But to your point, Sam, it's sort of like trying to fill this puzzle, but maybe just Carson Steele gives you something different. I thought it was very notable when we asked Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, about Carson Steele, that he complimented him earlier this week on being in the right place at the right time and being able to trust him. All those things are very, very important to the Chiefs' offense because so much of it is really good offensive minds saying, if this guy goes here, there's openings here. And so for Carson to have that sort of compliment thrown on him this early, I think it's very notable at this point. And he's gotten way more 1s and 2s reps this week than he has any other point. So the Chiefs are taking a hard look at him, and it's gone from, wow, I don't think he's going to have a chance to make the roster to, like you said, Blair, I'd be surprised right now if he doesn't. But what that means for the other guys remains to be seen.
Throw out one last question about the running backs to you guys, which is every year I think we evaluate the Chiefs roster as far as like who maybe another NFL team might pick up some of their cuts, specifically the wide receiver position. I mean, they traded Smith Marset last year because they thought he'd get picked up. Obviously, the Panthers would have picked him up for free. They traded for him. But this year, I think you could see the inverse happen. Like, I think the Chiefs are going to be scouring the running back market after cuts to see if there is a guy who can fill this role, not just a running back on the roster, but specifically a pass-catching running back on the roster. I mean, they've had better guys get cut than some of the guys we're talking about, like Deneric Prince potentially making the team. I mean, Derek Gore was a valuable running back, I thought, to them. Ends up on the practice squad. So I think there's got to be somebody on one of these other 31 teams that could factor into this question.
What are the thoughts with Clyde, too? I mean, it is great for him to open up about his PTSD, but at this point, he's missed about half the practices with this thing. And
didn't play Saturday. Wasn't in Jacksonville.
No, he played, right? Didn't he have a snap or a carry?
I'll have to double check it, but I mean, I know it's been about at least half the days out here where he's been out with the, they call it a sickness, the mental illness part of this thing. And again, it's great for him to open up. But
you're right, he was there. He was definitely
at a certain point, the Chiefs need to know that they can, have him out there and be relied upon. And obviously there's lists out there in the NFL if you are going through difficult things to to get yourself right. And I'm sure at some point the Chiefs are going to have to ask themselves kind of a hard question here. Listen, everybody in the locker room loves Clyde. He's beloved by coaches and players alike. But at a certain point, your ability is your availability. And if this is something difficult he's going through, it does make this thing a lot more difficult for the Chiefs, who do need different players at running back. And if you can't count on Clyde to be one of those pass catchers, you need to rely on somebody. And that somebody's probably not in their room right now.
Yeah, just to echo your point, because I was just thinking of that term. I mean, coaches everywhere, and here in particular, will always tell you how much the best ability is availability. And as much as everybody loves Clyde, and as much as we're obviously moved by what he's going through, I mean, that's a prime consideration, maybe the prime consideration.
He's such a team favorite that he at training camp, he's one of the last to come down to the field. And he often walks with Pacheco and Travis Kelce, and they're always laughing and joking, and it's kind of fun to see them how they enter the field. Sam, something you said earlier, I hadn't thought about the idea of them keeping 4 running backs. They have in the past because they kept a fullback, 3 running backs and a fullback. But consider this, that if they keep those 4, including Clyde, you still only have 2 with NFL experience.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's Clyde's best argument for being on the team is if Isiah Pacheco gets hurt, do you want your only running backs on your roster to have 0 NFL experience, undrafted players? Yeah. One guy was on your practice squad for a full season. The other guy, none of us had on our initial 53 before camp started. Like, I think that's Clyde's best argument for being on the team. But I also think that's why Clyde is the guy that is susceptible if they do pick up somebody from another roster.
I always do not want to forget about this too, the Elijah Lee thing that happens every year, which is the Chiefs try to keep so many guys and keep their assets. Clyde could be a great example of like surprise cut on cut day when really they're saying, hey, just hold on. Got to get Hollywood Brown on IR. Once we do that, we're picking up the phone. You don't have to go through waivers. We'll call you and you can re-sign with the team. So again, something else to keep in mind with some of this juggling that goes on with the roster, that Clyde could be one of those particular players where it's like, you hear surprise cut, just give it a second, because it might be where they're doing some massaging to get certain guys on the roster and making sure they keep as many resources as possible. To your point though, Sam, that works against guys like Deneric Prince and Nico Remigio, is that most likely the Chiefs will get those guys back to the practice squad. And so when you're looking at trying to keep as many assets as possible, sometimes the tie goes to guys that will be picked up elsewhere, and it makes it tougher for those guys to make a roster.
Another player on the list of who to watch from last week was left tackle Kingsley Suamataia. I hope I was close there. Yeah. It's only taken, when was he drafted? April?
Couldn't remember Carson Steele, but you got Suamataia.
Embarrassing. One thing, we got to talk to Kingsley after just the other since the game and in training camp this week. He thinks he did pretty well. I don't know what the grades say, but sounds like he did okay in his first game. And Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, was really high on Kingsley. So good vibes for Kingsley out of the gate?
Yeah, the 3 of us, you, Jesse, and I were talking about this on the way walk back here, but Andy Heck is just somebody you have to know to realize that based on what he said today, he's really high on Kingsley's development during training camp. And so, I've talked to some people that feel like he's kind of already given them maybe what Orlando Brown did a couple of years ago. And if that's your foundation, I think you're in a pretty good spot, considering that you've got 4 years of this guy to become a pretty serviceable left tackle.
Graded out from PFF was fine. You're going to need better pass protection than run blocking, even though I think he can give them something in the run blocking game. He's an athletic guy, so potentially can help in that area as well. But just want to repeat what we've said often here, which is the bar is a lot lower for what they need because of Patrick Mahomes. He is so good at avoiding sacks. He's so good at sensing pressure. And if this was a different quarterback, the Chiefs might be in some trouble. But they can go through some growing pains with Kingsley that they couldn't with other guys potentially at quarterback, because Patrick Mahomes makes everything a lot better. He just has a sixth sense about him, and it's part of what makes him great, is that he's able to sense that and get the ball out and still make plays. And so they don't need a left tackle to be at an elite level as maybe some other quarterbacks do because of the guy that they have back there right now.
If he's as good as we think he could be, what a draft coup for the Chiefs to pick up a left tackle in the second round.
Yeah.
Who? How much how much is that going to help the roster, the salary cap over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I've long thought, how are the Chiefs going to solve left tackle for the long term? Because it's such a premium position in the draft, almost to the point of quarterback. It's like right underneath it as far as where teams use top 10 draft picks, to where it was going to be hard for them to get a premier talent. And so the Chiefs probably aren't going to get a premier talent you'll take an Eric Fisher type of talent there, somebody that can lock up that spot for maybe 6 years. And that's what's so impressive about what the Chiefs have done at the end of first rounds, too. And they've gotten an all-pro cornerback, and it's still in the first round. They have a very serviceable edge rusher. These are premium positions that are hard to acquire for teams that don't have a lot of dollars to spend and don't draft in the top 10.
You'll remember the mock draft, I had the Chiefs taking him first round.
Yes, that's right.
I'm kind of from the whispers that we heard from the Chiefs is they kind of valued him late first, early second, but again had the kind of picks that they did. So for them to pick him up and trade up and get him in the second round, like Sam said, I mean, every indication we've had from people talking to people around, they're very impressed by him, and all systems are sort of go with him moving forward. So I wrote in the Star yesterday that he's the starter, so nobody can turn back now. He's going to be the starting tackle in week 1.
I don't know. I heard Andy Heck say that still.
It's an ink, Blair. I don't care what Andy Heck said. Sorry. Yeah.
When he only played 7 snaps, I mean, we all said it in Jacksonville, we're sitting there wow, he's cemented as the starter, not just winning this battle, he's won it. Otherwise, they would have given him a longer look.
I would remember saying this last week that I thought he was one of the starters that they would keep on the field longer just to get a little more acclimated to the NFL. Nope. He was out with the rest of the
I'm interested to see if that does change on Saturday. I'm anticipating all the starters play a little bit more. We'll hear from Andy Reid Thursday on that, but specifically the offensive line. I mean, and if I'm Carson Wentz, I am begging to get a series with the first team.
Poor Carson Wentz.
Usually, I was looking back, usually about a quarter to a half for the starters in this game. But it was interesting to hear Matt Nagy talk about it, because he said Kingsley needs game reps. And that's kind of what I thought about, guys. It's you had an opportunity to give him game reps, and you took him out because he's so valuable to the team. So, see more of him in that game. He'll get more tests, and obviously he's sort of ready to get out there for more snaps as well.
I do think it's good that the Chiefs, not to disparage Jacksonville, which has a good defense, but I think they play a really solid opponent this weekend with the Lions. So I think if you see ones versus ones for maybe 3 series, that'll be pretty instructive, and will be the best preseason preview of the Chiefs. So that this is good for the Chiefs and their fans at the games at Arrowhead. So I think you'll get to see the starters longer today than you will in any of the 3 preseason games. Let's switch it over to defense and identify another player on the list, and that was Felix Uzama, who started and had a good first snap, had a good bull rush, kind of split a double team, took 2 guys to keep him away from Trevor Lawrence. But then I kind of lost track of him throughout the rest of the game. And I think as we were leaving the stadium on Saturday, I think we talked about Felix and kind of concluded that it was a meh kind of day, not average. And we were looking for a little bit more simply because we had seen more from him at training camp.
I thought he struggled when I went back and watched. So, the Jaguars ran right at him. And sometimes there was a play where he's being blocked by a tight end and got manhandled on it. Now, Joe Cullen today said he thought he did a couple of really good things in the game. And it seemed genuine the way he said it. But it goes back to what I said earlier. They said he's got to do it every snap and be more consistent. But I thought part of the Jaguars' game plan, even with their second starters, was to run at Felix. And we've seen some improvement with this pass rush, particularly in those one-on-one drills. But we saw Steve Spagnuolo last year bench him after Josh Jacobs ran loose in Vegas on him. And, he's going to have to be able to set the edge if he wants to get on the field more consistently. But the Chiefs need him. I mean, they play their third defensive end a lot. He's got to be ready to go.
How many snaps did he get?
36. I just
36.
looked it up. He was tied for the second most on the defense.
I said he started. I don't think he started. So Dana and Karlaftis would have started.
But, I mean, that's the opposite of what we're talking about with Kingsley, which is get this guy some game reps.
Yeah.
How did PFF grade him?
That's 60.2, which is kind of what I would have said.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of like
average,
60 is exactly average.
Mm-hmm.
he had 4 quarterback pressures, so that's good.
And that is where we've seen his improvement in camp, too.
The get off on the ball was better. I mean, it couldn't have been much worse than last year. So positive signs. I do think you just talked about the offensive line, second team offensive line, Sam. If I was going to say right now, like, how could this season go not the way that fans think it's going to go, and going for the three-peat here on August 14th, if we went back and said, what should we have seen at the time? I think depth is the real question mark.
Yes.
We're talking about Felix. Like, they're going to need that rotation player. But, like, that's their next guy up. And we're not sure about him. And then after that, we really don't know. Offensive line, I mean, last year in the Super Bowl, you got Nick Allegretti out there. And just, you don't skip a beat. You lose Joe Thuney and you just go with it. And he injures his shoulder and he's fine. You know, they lost Nick Bolton. Drew Tranquil stepped in. They lost on the back end, Brian Cook. And Mike Edwards steps in. I mean,
veteran depth.
They lost a Menahu and other, Dana or whoever. It's like, this team right now, there's certain spots you look at and you go, man, what if they lose their right guard?
It's all the spots.
What if they lose their defensive end? What if Nick Bolton's hurt again this year? Who's their backup for linebacker? Today Brian Cook's out with his gonna have a kid for the first time, and then Justin Reed hasn't been back but Deion Bush is in there as a starter, and it's like, this isn't like it was last year. They kind of prepare themselves for the worst case scenario, and some of this is the salary cap. You can't do everything, but it does feel like, if I'm talking on August 14th or mid-August and saying, where could this season potentially go wrong, I do have a lot more of those feelings like, man, what if a particular position goes down? This could be more trouble than it was last year for the Chiefs.
This was an off-season thing, right? This was
So last year they had sort of this Moneyball approach to the off-season, which was they got the undervalued players. Like Drew Tranquil should have been scooped up in the first wave of free agency. He wasn't. They just said, this guy's sitting out there. Why shouldn't we sign him? He's getting undervalued. Same thing happened with Mike Edwards, to where they weren't looking for that position. He was available. They thought he was cheaper than he should have been, so they signed him. And those guys just didn't happen to be there this year in the sense that they could grab guys under their. And by the way, those guys, like Tranquil gets a 2-year deal from the 3-year deal from the Chiefs out of it. Mike Edwards gets a more expensive deal out of it from Buffalo. Like, those guys were better than what they paid for from them. But I've thought this for a while too. I completely agree with Jesse. Like, all 3 levels of their defense, I worry about injuries. We didn't have that concern for them last year. Their offensive line, I mean, part of this is they've developed late-round draft picks so well that, like, they drafted undrafted Andrew Wiley, gets a multi-year deal from Washington. You've got to replace him, though. And you had to spend $20 million on Juwan Taylor to do it. Nick Allegretti, a 7th-round pick, you develop him, but then he gets a multi-year deal. You've got to keep churning. So, like, we look at the draft to fill, like, starter-like holes like Kingsley, like Xavier Worthy, but the Chiefs have been so good at backfilling the depth of their roster that the answer to this is their rookies are going to have to be ready to go. And we've seen some struggle. Like, Jaden Hicks looks ready, but we've seen some struggles with these interior linemen that are going to be replacing Nick Allegretti.
Hunter Norzad and C.J. Hansen have not had good camps to this point, at least from our untrained eyes, and have struggled at times with that. So that, I mean, I will say Caliendo has been good. You know what I mean? Like, and he's had a whole year in the system, but it just gives you a little bit of pause to say these guys could become the next Nick Allegretti, but it does not feel like they're there yet. And this team's going for a three-peat. So, like, you need somebody, and maybe it's Caliendo. Maybe he's the one that
Nick
rotates around.
Allegretti started in 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
2 of the 3,
and
2 Super Bowls.
And again, in spots that the Chiefs desperately need him to play.
Just one twist on this. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. I think you can make a reasonable case that the starting lineups are as good or better than the Chiefs have had. That if you knew you could have just the starters, I mean, obviously we got questions with Kingsley and you have to replace Snead properly, but I think they will. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, is this theoretically anyway as good a starting lineup as they'll have had?
Well, they would have upgraded wide receiver.
Yeah,
I would have to say offense and defense, yes. You know what I mean?
Depends. We're assuming
there's some
health.
X factors,
We're assuming
right?
health. Like, if Hollywood Brown's healthy, I think their offense is.
Yeah,
I think even
the
the addition of Worthy upgrades the wide receiver group because now Rashid Rice isn't your number 1 wide receiver; he's your number 2.
If Rashid Rice is not suspended, like right now, Xavier Worthy's the only addition to the wide receiver room that they have, and we all thought that was the big weakness. I mean, yes, they're better offensive, but I mean, those teams that had Tyreek and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins and Mahomes on a rookie deal, like, with Mitch Schwartz and Fisher at tackles, like those offenses are pretty good.
Not as
They're
balanced.
pretty good, but not as bad. That's the offense, though. I mean, right? We're still at that point.
Yeah.
The defense had moments, right? But you were always waiting for the defense to form by the end of the season. And in a way, it's a moot point because it is all about the depth. But it's just kind of interesting, I think, to ponder what the potency of the starting lineup.
Well, I look
looks
at I think the offense is 20% better and the defense is 20% worse. Something along those lines. Just losing L'Jarius Sneed and Willie Gay, I think, has an impact on the defense. And then there were just bigger additions offensively with Suamataia, Worthy, and so I just think that's why it's more speed with the offense. So, but we talked about who we think is the third and fourth running back. I want to talk to you guys about who we think the number 2 cornerback is going to be, another position that's not settled right now. And Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson are the candidates. Dave Merritt spoke to this today. No clues on how it's going to shake out, but is there a favorite here, or should is it available for one to just jump up and grab?
I think Jalen Watson is going to be the starter. But, I mean, going into training camp, I think I've been perhaps most underwhelmed by that position group just because there was such an obvious opportunity for somebody to become an NFL starter, and nobody's taken it in camp. I mean, Najee Johnson's had 2 injuries, and understandably hasn't played football in a year. You get back in a contact game, you're using muscles, I think, differently than you probably have when you're just training. But he has been injured. He didn't get to play in the preseason game because of it. Josh Williams, I thought, struggled against the Jaguars on Saturday. So, I mean, I think it's Jalen Watson's job to lose, but I think there hasn't been anybody that's come up and just outright won this job in training camp.
Reminds me of last year's talk because then CB3 was open behind L'Jarius and McDuffie, and Dave Merritt came to the same tent and said, I want somebody to emerge. I want somebody to take this over. And nobody did. The whole season they were rotating Jalen Watson and they were rotating Joshua Williams, and it was just back and forth and back and forth. And it just feels like the same old song here this year, which is the only thing I'll say about Joshua Williams, he had a pass breakup and allowed a deep pass. PFF actually did like his play. He was 4th highest. And some of this comes down to things that aren't exactly maybe what you want to see from him, because he's a good tackler. He comes up and run defense. He'll hit you, that sort of thing. It's part of football too, but right now they want somebody who can lock down the outside. So your coverage is probably going to be overweighted on this sort of thing if you're looking at trying to win a competition. But I actually had stepped away from the Chiefs press conference when Dave Merritt talked. My initial answer was going to be, I have no idea. I don't think they have any idea. So I'm glad Dave Merritt said the same thing. I think I don't have any idea and they don't have any idea, but one of those 3 guys, Najee, for a long time, seems to have been Steve Spagnuolo, one of his favorite guys. He seems to always talk highly of him, but again, not healthy. Jalen Watson has had ups and downs, but maybe a little bit more consistent and better in zone coverage. And then Joshua Williams has every physical tool, just needs consistency and to be better in zone. So I don't know. I don't know, and I don't think the Chiefs know. I think that's what I would say at this point.
I think the person who starts on Saturday and plays with the ones the longest is the favorite. That sounds obvious, but I think that's who
I would bet.
We'll
I would bet that on me and Jalen Watson. To Sam's point, I would agree. I would say right now, I would say Jalen Watson if you made me pick, but would not be surprised with the other 2, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised with Josh Williams either. He's been out there. He's been out there the whole time when these other guys have come back.
Well, one thing that's been interesting to me in camp, and Jesse and Blair, no one's seen more snaps than you guys have, but the last week or so they've at least shown us again the formation that has Trent McDuffie lined up in the slot, which we weren't seeing in OTAs, and we weren't seeing in the first, week and a half of training camp. And I think it's possible that Steve Spagnuolo has just said, well, I know that guy can do that job better than anybody in the league. Maybe it's best just to at least have that locked down. I think it shows us he's still toying with options. And I don't think Steve Spagnuolo, with 1 day in practice of training camp, wants to still be toying with options right now.
Here's one interesting thing today, Sam. Brian Cook was out. Justin Reed was out. Their 2 safeties were Jaden Hicks and Deion Bush. They did not move Shamari Connor back there, which again speaks to your point, which is like, okay, he's locked in as that slot corner for that particular down, but that's a question mark. Like, can he cover that? Is he fast enough to be able to?
I totally agree. We don't know if he can play man-to-man yet.
So, I mean, there are lots of contingencies here where they're trying to figure out who are the best guys to put in these spots. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of slot corners particularly, other than maybe McDuffie, and if they think Connor can do it. But I thought it was interesting when they needed two safeties, like Deion Bush, who is very much on a roster bubble, practice squad type of thing. He was a starter today when Shamari Connor played that position a lot of last year. So I do think they're still searching on that back end to try to figure out exactly what's best. But it also speaks to that slot corner spot and like how they feel about it. I don't know what the answer is right there. And as you said, Sam, I don't think they want Trent McDuffie to have to do that, but he played an all-pro corner last year doing it. And if that's the best for the team, that would just mean they need two more outside corners, which is a position we're already talking about they're struggling to fill.
No SportsBeat KC podcast will be complete without discussion of the wide receiver. I went back and listened to our last 3 podcasts that involve the Chiefs, and we have spent an incredible amount of time talking about this position. It's interesting, and it has been made. It's in the news this week, especially because of the injury to Hollywood Brown and what that might do to the depth chart. Especially at the bottom, we're really interested in what happens at the bottom of the depth chart, or even how long the list of wide receivers the Chiefs will keep. So, Jesse, let's start with you. What does the Hollywood Brown injury looks like? Maybe a month. We'll miss him a month. Perhaps the opener and a second game. What does that injury mean to the position group as a whole, and who benefits the most from the opportunity?
Well, I think they start the season with one more spot. Then again, they're going to have to get him to injury reserve if they do that. But even if you don't do that, you're going to have to probably get yourself to 6 receivers that they were probably going to go to earlier. They've talked about putting Justin Watson just straight into that Hollywood Brown role. A little bit of a surprise, but that's how they're handling it now, and kind of appears to be how they want to do it moving forward. Again, we talk about Matt Nagy, guys being trustworthy in the right spots. That's sort of the Justin Watson mold. They'll be in the right spot, clear open lanes, those sorts of things. I just want to speak based off of what we've seen out there, Blair, because we're out there for the reps. We see the 1s, the 2s, the 3s. We see how this thing kind of shakes out, and you see how it changes over time. There's been some major movement in the last week to me. First off, no matter what you think, Blair, Sky Moore has been with 1s and 2s the whole time.
I didn't want to make it confrontational. I thought we could get through.
He's not going anywhere. He's on the team. Anyone out there, if you see a roster projection that does not have Sky Moore on the team, delete the tab. Go look for a different one. We'll have one eventually. But Sky Moore's out there. He's on the team. Justin Ross has elevated himself. And we saw that he was one of our guys to watch in the game against Jacksonville. He showed what he does. He catches balls down the sideline that are jump balls. Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw them very often, doesn't feel comfortable doing that, but we know that the Chiefs sometimes have had red zone struggles in the past, and if you're not totally comfortable with Jared Wiley filling that role, then Justin Ross can do it. He's shown that skill set. Now, can he separate? Can he do other things for you? Can he play special teams? Not his forte, but is that one skill enough to get him on the roster? They're giving him, kind of like Carson Steele, they're giving him a longer look. Nico Remigio has way moved down the depth chart, and that's just a reality of the situation. They still have him on first-team kick return, but it seems like he went from a guy that was possibly on to most likely off, at least at this point. And again, I talked about earlier, he's a guy you figure you can get back to your practice squad when it comes to that. But outside of that, McCole Hardman, I'll let Sam or somebody else figure out McCole Hardman. I don't know. I don't know. I guess he's insurance. I guess he's depth, but he does seem to repeat a lot of the skills that you already have on the roster, especially Xavier Worthy doing some of the horizontal stuff that Sam talks about every week. So who else am I missing out of that group? I think it's about all of them, but that's sort of where they stand now, and I would definitely say...
You didn't mention Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney is working with the 4s and 5s.
Again,
receding, invisible man, right?
Best ability guy.
The fact I didn't remember him is where he's at. I would be.
It done nothing to advance his cause.
I don't want to say shocked. I would be very surprised if he makes this roster.
Yeah.
At this point, based off of how they're utilizing him in practice, and the constant message from coaches is just we need him available. We need him out there, and he's just had injury after injury.
And Andy Reid's a little blunt about that. Even the way he says it is a little more, clarity than Andy normally would.
Matt
Sam,
Nagy
you either
said
wrote
it.
this or talked about it, but I mean, nobody. I think you wrote it actually, but nobody needed to sort of demonstrate, getting with it
Yeah.
Trustworthiness.
in every way more than him, and it's at every turn he's not a factor.
I think the Chiefs thought they could fix him, but to me, Kadarius Toney is a lesson that what they say to us all the time about guys loving football being important to them. You asked Andy Reid a question about it today, because they tell us that all the time about guys love football being important to them. Kadarius Toney is a reminder of why that matters, because they departed from the usual type of person they bring in their locker room.
Yeah.
And it's been a disaster besides, one game against Jacksonville or something his first year.
I mean, in the Super Bowl. I mean,
Yeah, the
he
Super
had
Bowl.
one of the biggest plays in the
great
Super
punt
Bowl.
return in the Super Bowl.
I mean, that you cannot. You
Yeah,
can't
it's a place in
downplay.
Chiefs lore.
I'm telling you, you cannot downplay.
Yeah.
Like, there's these super duper nerdy stats like percent championship won based off of a play. You know what I mean? Like, how much did this play help you win a championship? Like, that play was probably one of the highest of the Chiefs' season. You know what I mean? That punt return where he juked 4 guys and got down the sideline. So, again, it caught a touchdown. You can't overlook that. But to Sam's point, I mean, overall, it's been a disaster. It has not gone the way, obviously, they planned or they had hoped. But for the reasons I think that he stated, which is like this has been more of a priority for the Chiefs than for him. And that's just probably how this thing is going to end up.
Final point about Remigio, he didn't help himself with the play Saturday night where ball was taken from him after a reception, right?
Yeah. And he fumbled.
Yes.
That was a fumble.
I couldn't believe the call. I couldn't believe the call was overturned.
Yes, I don't know where they saw that there was enough to overturn that, but it certainly looked like a fumble.
Yeah. In fact, it was referred to today by I think by Andy or Embry. Somebody made a point of it.
Matt Nagy talked about it
Maybe that's what
previously
it was.
this week, and I couldn't help, Blair, but think about when Nagy mentioned Steele and said he's someone, he's the right place at the right time, we can trust him. I thought that's also bringing up Remigio. It's like, we're throwing you out there, you're with the good teams, we want to see what you can do, and then you fumble. And again, whether it was a fumble or not, can you trust him?
It was a sloppy play.
And I think the trust really melted on that one play. And I think it's a shame for him. He's a great kid, a great story. We talked to him earlier this training camp. But that really did, I think, shatter some trust. And I think he's likely a practice squad guy.
Okay, great conversation as always. And look for the 4 players to keep an eye on for the second preseason game Saturday against the Detroit Lions, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Channel 41 in Kansas City. Not 38, 41. That'll do it for today. Thanks to producer Randy Mason for putting together the show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, and Vahe Gregorian for sharing their insights. And thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought of the show by leaving a rating and review. We'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.